Hi, welcome back to Daily Dose. I'm joined now by members of an Israeli organization called the Gideon Project. They're lone soldiers, dozens of them, who immigrated to Israel and served in the IDF. They're now going back to the U.S. to speak on American universities and college campuses against anti-Israel rhetoric and against the BDS movement. There's another similar organization called Reservists on Duty. It was founded 2 years ago, made up of reserve combat soldiers primarily. They also speak out against what they say is growing acceptance for anti-Zionism within American politics and on American university campuses. Here's a look about what this group is all about.
Long live anti-Father! Long live anti-Father! Go back to Europe! Go back to Europe! Whose university? Our university! We charge you with genocide! We charge you with genocide! Hey, white girl, what do you say? Hey, white girl, what do you say? You are justifying terrorism!
Just when they started to see, oh, this guy has some questions and they don't know how to answer that, they're immediately like, nope, don't talk to him. We don't engage with him.
Don't engage with people who are going to waste your time. Don't engage with people.
I would like the source for this. Can I get it, please?
You said you guys don't use this. This is a video. Anyone that wants to see that will show you right now. Bring Hamas.
I'd like the shirt for this. I've never seen this in my life, and I lived there and I served in the Israeli army.
Israel shouldn't exist. Why? Why should it?
Haifa University, 45% of it are non-Jews. In Akwa University, 55% of it are non-Jews. In Tzfat University, 65% of it are non-Jews. So what kind of apartheid is that?
There's facts on the ground that they're lying about.
They're lying because I'm Arab Muslim, live in Israel, and we don't have an apartheid. لا أنا مش يهودي مسلم، أنا عربي إسرائيلي مسلم.
They have billions of dollars funneling into Gaza and into the West Bank. And where does it go?
فيني شو كانت؟ فلسطين. وشو دولة فلسطين؟ مين كان رئيسها؟ شو كان علمها؟ شو كانت حدودها اللي دولة فلسطين تحكي عنها؟
Why are they living in multi-million-dollar mansions when their people are starving? Can you please give me your definition? I'm not getting paid a dime to be here. I'm here because I believe in liberal thinking. I don't believe in hate speech. I don't believe in an incitement. And I think that this is what this is. Stop being so hateful. Stop being so anti. Be pro.
How the Palestinians reacted to when you guys killed 3 kids. You guys loved it. You celebrated it.
The second that Jewish students that are a little different from you feel uncomfortable to walk by here, yeah, I'm going to stand up for that as an American, as an Israeli, and as a former IDF soldier.
I'm joined here in our studio by Rachel Kaplan and Lyra Golan. They're members of the Gideon Project. You saw them in the piece just now. I want to ask, when you travel through college campuses, how much of what you see is actually people holding anti-Semitic beliefs, and how much of it is ignorance that they don't know, they don't want to know? I mean, what do you see?
So we see a lot of, yes, there is a lot of anti-Semitism. There are people that are just generally, genuinely hateful. But in most of the cases, it's students that are just straight up ignorant. They don't know about what's going on here. In most cases, they have no connection to the Middle East. But what's going on the campuses is you have these groups that are very loud, and they're saying very, extravagant things. And so
is it just about Israel or about the West Bank? Do they connect American Jews? Is Judaism or American Jews or Washington, D.C., do they make a connection between just Judaism and Zionism? Do they not understand the difference?
I think a lot of times everything is thrown together, but you have in the center of campuses students that are walking by, and they want to be on the right side of history. They want to make a difference. And when they only are exposed to one side and one way of thinking, then suddenly everything is thrown together and they don't know where to turn for facts.
I want to point out that our staff and our bookers, we reached out to several BDS members as part of this segment, knowing we were going to be speaking with Gideon Project members. They didn't want to, or were unable to be part of the discussion today. But we have you here, and I want to ask just a question about the U.S., a big story in Charlottesville. I mean, that happened last week. That was on a college campus, a very prestigious university, and we had groups of white supremacists marching with torches at night through college campus, chanting anti-Semitic and very vile. I mean, is that the extreme that you see? Is that, I mean, just the fact that that happened on a college campus, are you surprised by that?
I'm not surprised by it. Look, there are always the people that are way off to the sides with their extremism, right? It's everywhere, right? But in most cases, you have people, at least specifically in our what we're talking about, they're more in the middle, but they just believe things that they were taught, that they just have no place of getting the correct information from, and they just full-heartedly believe it.
Rachel, it seems, at least from that video clip, perhaps the biggest refrain you hear is that Israel's an apartheid state. Israel's an apartheid state. That refrain comes out. Is that the biggest thing that you just hear from campus to campus? And how do you combat that claim?
Well, I would say it's hosted. A lot of the universities actually have a thing called Anti-Israel Week, Israel Apartheid Week. So in our group, the Gideon Group, the Shillman Fellows, we actually have, it's a very unique group because we're built up of minorities from all across Israel.
Yeah, we saw in the piece, it's Israeli Arabs as well. I mean, it's not just
exactly.
Jews.
I think there's nothing better than saying, look at my friend. How is this an apartheid state when we have members of our Knesset, Arab members, we have Druze people speaking about Israel, saying what a great state it is and how happy and how great of a life they live here. I think that's honestly the best counterclaim.
What about perhaps the criticism of Israel that focuses on on criticism of the state, that focuses on international condemnations, international rulings against the West Bank settlements, against settlement construction? Is there legitimate anti-Israel discussion that you see that doesn't border on extremism or hate?
Right. So there's always, and that's essentially what the difference between us is. We're not the government. We're not some political party. We're people sharing our personal experiences. So when people come along with rational arguments about problems with Israel, no one, amongst us denies that our country, just like every country, has its own problems. We're not talking about specific politics, and there are always things that we could say, you know what, that's a problem. But let's let's look at the situation. This is one issue, and it may be even smaller than you think. But when you talk about the grand scheme of things, it's totally different.
Do you take a political stance as an organization about a two-state solution, a one-state solution, about the future of resolving the conflict, or is it about just being present and being a face of, I served in the IDF, I'm in Israel, I was here in Israel, this is not at all accurate?
So that's a really important point. We're trying to not take a political stance. We have people from all sides with all beliefs, and I think that's really what makes us unique. Showing up on campuses and having people that believe both ways, that really give their own true views, and having a presence to strengthen pro-Israel students on campuses, which campuses, as you can see, and as you said, the situation is a lot worse than when I personally left the States 7 years ago. In 7 years, the situation has gone way downhill.
Where have you been? Just give me a kind of a broad swath of where you've traveled.
We've been to this last year we went to more than a dozen universities. We went to UC Irvine together in California. I went to also Berkeley. I've been to Houston, to Austin, I've been all over the place. We've been to Columbia. We've been to, you can throw in a bunch of more names.
New York, Chicago.
We've been all over the place.
We have a delegation going out to Canada.
And this year we plan on expanding that. This year we're planning on going to a few dozen more. We're actually looking for more volunteers as well.
Are people willing to engage you in constructive dialogue or to ask questions? Or because we saw from that clip, it's people curse at you. They don't want to. They accuse you of being funded by the government. Is there positive energy that comes out of this ever? So
I would say maybe 3% of the time I've come across people who are genuinely willing to discuss.
Well, that's a terribly low number.
Exactly. That's why the situation is so bad. When we speak with people and I share with them, my personal experiences, whatever it might be, you will see constantly, we have video evidence of it, they constantly come from the organizations that support BDS and they say, no, don't engage with them. Because the second that I say something that I can prove, they have nowhere to go with it.
And you're expanding and going to more campuses next year, traveling around the country, around the continent. Gideon Project, you can find more about them online. I want to thank our guests, Rachel Kaplan, Lear Golan. Thank you so much for being with us, for giving us your perspective. Appreciate your time here on the show.